Your home, your castle? Then barricade your doors, sit back, and watch the best defenses in the natural world. We're counting down the top 10 most extreme defenders in the animal kingdom and comparing them to the ways we try to stay protected. Discover that it's better to be safe than sorry when defense is taken to the most extreme.
Earth is a planet of extremes. Extreme places. And extreme animals. But some animals are more extreme than others. Join us as we count down to find the most unusual and the most extraordinary on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 10.
Humans are born soft. Our delicate bodies can be easily damaged because the only protective covering we've got is our skin. So it's no wonder we've looked for other ways to defend our bodies against attack. In the Middle Ages, the solution was to cover the body in something resembling a tin can. A suit of heavy armor was a great defense, especially in high-speed collisions. Coming in at number 10 in the countdown is the animal equivalent of a knight in shining armor, the armadillo. Armadillo is Spanish for man in armor, and it's easy to see how it got its name. The tough, bony plates are an excellent defense for a South American three-banded armadillo, especially when a hungry dog is looking for food. The armadillo's hinged plates of bone would make a medieval knight proud. And although we don't wear suits of armor today, we are protected inside a very different kind of tin can. Modern vehicles travel much faster than ancient war horses. To survive impacts at these speeds requires some very sophisticated defenses. It's estimated that one American is killed in a traffic-related accident every 13 minutes. That's why scientists are crashing cars at the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety's Vehicle Research Center in Arlington, Virginia. They're looking to find better ways of defending us from injury.
3, 2, 1.
Thanks to the work of the team and their crash test dummies, cars will be designed with improved protection for drivers and passengers, making the highway a safer place. Unless, of course, you're an armadillo. The armadillo is number 10 in the countdown because, unlike our next contender, there's a chink in its armor. The armadillo likes nothing better than scavenging on roadkill. Its bony armor plating may keep it safe from predators with 4 legs, but it's no defense against 4 wheels.
Number 9.
The forests of Australia are a battlefield. because high in the treetops, an army is under attack. This is the nest of the green tree ant. With powerful jaws and jets of formic acid, they're well equipped to fight off all invaders. All except the animal that's marching in to number 9 in the countdown. Nothing can stop the advance of the insect equivalent of an armored car. Underneath that leathery shield is the caterpillar of the moth butterfly. It's number 9 in the countdown because it can bulldoze its way into the heart of the ant's nest in complete safety. Its armored back is too big to be flipped over and too tough to be damaged by sprays of formic acid. Safe within its unique defense, the caterpillar is free to feed in the ant's nursery. This carnivorous caterpillar's defensive guard is so effective that it's no wonder that we've been trying for years to invent similar protective materials.
It's March 1922, and here are actual films of historic demonstration of man's latest contribution to longer life. It's bulletproof vest, guaranteed to protect the wearer against injury from ordinary pistol fire.
Bulletproof glass also came in handy. Put them together, and you get a defense any caterpillar would be proud of, according to Jack Maita of Lasco International.
Basically, we completely dismantle the vehicle and start from scratch. The body is like a cocoon to protect the passengers.
These cars are being customized into armored safety zones. For anywhere up to $100,000, you can have your car fitted with things like self-sealing gas tanks, supplemental locking devices, gun ports, and of course, glass that can withstand attack, even by automatic rifles. And don't forget the armored plating utilizing steel, Kevlar, and fiber ceramics. In an increasingly security-conscious world, it's no wonder that each year an estimated 18,000 armored cars are sold around the world. These caterpillars may not be bulletproof, but they are tough enough to defend themselves against some of the fiercest insects on the planet.
If you thought the evidence for the first 2 defendants was impressive, coming up are some truly alarming watchdogs. And we lift the lid on an extreme defender that's coming out of its shell. That's next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 8.
The next contender in our countdown of extreme defenders is built like a tank. A very slow-moving tank. The turtle is number 8 in the countdown thanks to its armored shell made up of about 50 fused bones attached to ribs and spine. The shell is a great place to hide from unwelcome visitors, including hungry lions. So long as the turtle keeps still, it could be mistaken for a spotted rock. Unfortunately, carrying your house on your back means it's impossible to make a quick getaway. It's times like this that you need some serious armor plating. A turtle can survive an attack from a lion because it has its very own panic room. At the first sign of trouble, it can retreat inside its bony carapace. Some turtle shells can support 200 times their own weight. That would be like having 2 African elephants stand on your head. A shell is such a successful defense that turtles have survived more or less unchanged for almost 200 million years. Unlike human homes. There was a time when your home really was your castle. A castle was the human equivalent of a turtle's shell. Once inside it, you couldn't move very fast. But in the days before gunpowder, its thick stone walls were a great defense against most weapons. But unlike the passive turtle drawn inside its shell, defenders of a castle would fight back from the safety of their fortress. And forget about tipping boiling oil over the walls. Contrary to popular belief, oil was far too expensive to waste as a weapon, so usually burning tar or scalding sand was poured onto attackers. Sometimes, even the strongest of defenses can be overwhelmed, which is why the smart castle owner installed a secret safe room. And things are much the same today, according to security technician Michael Baltimore.
What we want to do is put a physical barrier between the client and the bad guy so that he can't get to them, no harm comes to them, and they don't have to get engaged with the bad guy.
Bad guys don't stand a chance against a bulletproof, magnetically locking door that seals itself with 1,800 pounds of pressure. Even a turtle would be jealous of this door. Inside the safe room, the homeowner can stay a few minutes or a few days until the intruder leaves.
And of course, the best safe room is one nobody knows about. If the bad guy doesn't know where you are, he can't attack you. So this is what we really like.
Some turtles could also use a place to hide, because in the arms race of evolution, there's always one animal that can find a way around the toughest defense. The tiger shark is armed with a mouth like a chainsaw. It has more than 100 serrated teeth, perfectly adapted for cutting through the shell of a sea turtle. It seems that sometimes you need more than just an armored shell to make an effective defense, which is why our next contender is both tricky and sticky.
So far, we've seen turtles built like tanks, caterpillars with thick skins, and armadillos having a ball. But coming up, what animal's extraordinary defense puts dogs on high alert? Find out next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 7.
On the island of Madagascar, the next contender in our countdown of extreme defenders sometimes gets itself into a sticky situation, especially when a snake is out hunting. It's not easy to escape from the jaws of a snake when you're a soft and juicy tomato frog. This frog is number 7 in the countdown because it's one tomato that is really hard to swallow. First, it inflates its body to try to bluff its way out of danger. If that doesn't work, it has another trick up its sleeve, or in this case, under its skin. The frog secretes a thick white glue. It's a great defense because the snake's jaws can be gummed up for a couple of days, no matter how hard it tries to scrape it off. Some humans have copied the tomato frog's sticky defense in the battle against tooth decay. Every time we eat, we're not only feeding ourselves, but the billions of bacteria that live on our teeth. The bacteria can cause tooth decay because they turn sugars into acids, and the acids eat into our tooth enamel. Our best weapon to fight back is our spit. Saliva is the body's natural mouthwash, and the best way to get the saliva glands pumping is to chew. That's why chewing gum can be good for your teeth. Unfortunately for this snake, chewing on tomato frog gum won't improve its oral hygiene. When it comes to extreme defenses, the tomato frog is never stuck for a solution. However, there's much more to our next contender than meets the eye.
Number 6.
The big screen may be the only place to see giant armor-plated lizards. But no movie maker could dream up the unbelievable defense of the spiny reptile that's coming in at number 6 in the countdown. The horned lizard is built like a prickly tank. It's completely covered in armor plating and fringed with fearsome spines. The horned lizard looks truly ferocious. It would surely be the terror of the deserts of the American Southwest, if only it grew bigger than the size of your hand. That's why it terrorizes ants, not humans, and why its armored plating and spines are no defense against a big, hungry predator like a wily coyote. Instead, it uses a truly unique defense spray. It squirts blood out of its eyes. The horned lizard is number 6 in the countdown because when it increases the blood pressure in its sinuses, they burst, jetting blood up to 3 feet. It's enough of a distraction to give the lizard a chance to make a speedy getaway. And it can make any canine go looking for some serious eye protection. Goggles are a great way of shielding your eyes when traveling in an open car. But it was a different form of transportation that popularized another kind of eye guard. Sunglasses became fashionable back in the 1930s when civilians started copying Air Force pilots who wore shades to defend against the glare of the sun. Of course, few pilots would be seen dead going into combat wearing these sunglasses. There's only one animal in the world that would never protect its eyes with sunglasses. After all, the horned lizard's extraordinary defense system really is a sight for sore eyes.
Squirting blood may be a doggone defense, but the horned lizard is still only number 6 in the countdown. Because coming up, big teeth are no match for a really prickly customer. And what unusual defense is getting under this man's skin? Find out next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Up next. Number 5.
Gotcha!
Not even a hungry lion can take on our next contender. The porcupine is number 5 in the countdown because it's one animal that can really stick it to you. This African crested porcupine is usually a harmless vegetarian, unless it feels threatened. Then it will stamp its hind feet, rattle its tail, and raise the 30,000 sharp quills that cover its body. That's 30,000 good reasons to stay out of the porcupine's face, or backside, according to animal educator David Clevin.
Many people believe that porcupines shoot their quills, but of course that's not actually what they do. What they do is when they're threatened by dangers, they'll actually turn away from an animal. In the case of the African crested porcupine, they'll run backwards and they'll try and impale their enemy with those quills. The quills themselves are not as dangerous as you might think. What makes them truly dangerous is how far they penetrate and what happens afterwards.
The tip of each quill is covered in hundreds of tiny barbs. When they're embedded in moist flesh, they swell, working their way deeper under the skin. A quill can move about 1 inch each day, causing intense pain, and may eventually pierce vital organs or arteries. The porcupine's spiky defense is so effective that it's no wonder one man used similar tactics to conquer the world. More than 2,000 years ago, in Macedonia, Alexander the Great led an army of the best soldiers in the world. The secret of their success was simple. They used the same battle plan as the porcupine. Alexander's infantry was armed with quills. Only these quills were 20-foot-long pikes. Lined up in bristling rows, the Macedonian troops became a giant human porcupine. Nothing could get near the soldiers, and when they charged, their opponents quickly got the point. Faced with a wall of spines, you'd have to be crazy to take on a porcupine, or be one of the most feared scavengers on the African plains. Hyenas are tough. They're armed with jaws so powerful that they're one of the few animals that can take on the king of the beasts. But even hyenas will think twice before taking on a porcupine. If you thought porcupines had an extreme defense, you won't believe what we're throwing at you next.
Number 4.
As if spiders weren't scary enough, movie makers had to go and blow them up. Surely the creepiest of all the crawlies is the giant tarantula. Thanks to Hollywood, most people would stay well clear of a real-life tarantula. The trouble is that horror movies have never screened in the jungles of the Amazon. So to many hungry predators, the giant tarantula is the equivalent of a soft-shelled lobster. That's why the tarantula has had to come up with another extreme defense. The hairs covering its body may not look as impressive as a porcupine's quills, but they're barbed like miniature fish hooks. And unlike the porcupine, they can be fired like darts at any attacker. This coati, a South American relative of the raccoon, is about to find out why the tarantula is number 4 in the countdown. Having tarantula hairs flicked in your face can do terrible things to the nasal membranes, which is why the nose makes masses of mucus to try and flush away the stinging darts. The coati isn't the only animal that has learned not to mess with a tarantula. According to New Zealand spider expert Simon Pollard of Canterbury Museum.
One of the characteristics of tarantulas is that they have these urticating hairs on them. And these urticating hairs are a defense because, of course, something the size of a tarantula is a meal to many animals. And so they will flick these hairs off their body, trying to get it into the eyes and up the nose of things like rodents. And as I've had these hairs on my hands, they can be very, very irritating. There's like stinging nettle. She's just a little bit up, probably the bright lights. I'm gonna have to get rid of the...
It's not funny being covered in tarantula hairs, which is exactly why joke shops once used them as the main ingredient in boxes of itching powder. But no one was laughing when itching powder moved off the dance floor and onto the battlefield. During the Second World War, the Norwegian resistance movement was looking for ways to upset the invading German army. So Allied scientists from Britain's Section X, sometimes called the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, sent them a secret weapon. It was an itching powder so strong that a few grains rubbed in the eyes could cause temporary blindness. The idea was to spread the powder over German clothing and bedding by smuggling the weapon to workers in military laundries. The resistance even put the powder inside contraceptives. Perhaps the resistance could have just imported tarantulas to Norway. After all, these walking weapons are covered with irritating hairs, about 6 million per square inch.
So far, we've seen scratchy spiders, prickly porcupines, and bloody lizards. But still to come is an ancient enemy that now defends us to the death. That's next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 3.
To understand the next contender in our countdown of extreme defenders, you have to come face to face with the wolf. The wolf pack is organized along a chain of command dominated by the alpha male. He gets access to the best food, but he also has to defend his pack against intruders. Wolves are fiercely intelligent social animals that use dominant and submissive behaviors to establish their place in a hierarchy. So it's no wonder that around 100,000 years ago, some wolves fell under the spell of another dominant predator. When humans domesticated the wolf, we turned our ancient enemy into one of our fiercest defenders. That's how, after thousands of generations, we created the animal that's leaping into number 3 in the countdown, the dog. Domestication means that most dogs see their owner as leader of the pack. But sometimes there can be a little confusion about just who is the alpha male. This ferocious defense is why the dog is number 3 in the countdown. These domesticated wolves will defend our body and our territory. Dogs may look a little different from their ancient ancestors, but they still have many of the submissive and aggressive behaviors used in the wolf pack.
Mama, where is it?
Although they may occasionally try to bite the hand that feeds them, dogs can sometimes save our lives. Just look what happened on Christmas Eve, 1998, to the Coyle family of East Islip, New York. In the middle of the night, the family's sleep was interrupted by their faithful dog, Harvey.
He was nudging my wife, biting my arm. Never does that.
A crack in the chimney had started a fire that destroyed the house. This is one family that's extremely grateful for the dedication of their canine defender.
Yes, yes, I love you too.
Number 2.
Towering over the plains of Africa is a castle. Inside its walls are animals at war. This army of ants is on the rampage. They'll destroy anything that gets in their way, including the animals that built the castle of clay. Hiding at number 2 in the countdown are termites. The invading army has no trouble breaching the castle walls and slaughtering the helpless workers. But not all termites are helpless. This is a soldier, a Terminator termite, bred specifically for the defense of the colony. There can be 20 soldiers for every 100 workers, and they're all armed and very dangerous. Termite soldiers are number 2 in the countdown because they have some extremely sophisticated weapons. In addition to razor-sharp jaws, Some soldiers have nozzles on their foreheads that squirt a sticky, toxic spray. It's enough to stop even the most murderous ant dead in its tracks. Humans don't come equipped with forehead nozzles or huge mandibles, so we've had to find other ways to defend ourselves against attackers. At the foot of the Songshan Mountains in central China lies a holy temple where pacifist Buddhist monks learn to defend themselves with extreme prejudice. Since the 7th century, families sent their sons to the Shaolin Monastery to become warrior priests. They would master the art of Kung Fu, a combination of meditation and martial arts that uses defensive blocks and deadly strikes. But these guys use Kung Fu to get their kicks. Meet the Zero Gravity Stunt Team of Los Angeles, California. To perfect their choreographed Hong Kong action movie stunts, they really have to throw themselves into training.
Back fall.
Learning the correct way to take a fall
Twist
is
fall.
both the best defense against being injured and an important part of stunt work, according to Zero Gravity's Larry Leon.
One of the most important things about falls is the acting aspect of it, the selling part of it. Because when we do a fall and it looks like someone has really hurt themselves, you know, you're just making it look like it hurts, and that's the whole point, you know. You're dressing it up as much as you can. We're not nuts. That's just the way you do it. And if it looks like we really messed themselves up, then we've done it right.
When it comes to messing up insects, termite soldiers armed with toxic nozzles are the best in the business. There's only one animal that's a more extreme defender.
We've seen the 9 contenders. They're the best of the best. Only one animal is a more extreme defensive machine. It's number 1, and it's coming up next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme.
Standing.
Number 1.
If you want to meet the most extreme defender in the countdown, you have to take some serious precautions. That's because this is one animal that knows that a good offense really is the best form of defense. The number 1 most extreme defender in the countdown is the bee. We love honey, but so do the bees, which is why they'll defend it against any intruder, even if it's millions of times their size. A single nest can have up to 80,000 individuals, all prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice for queen and colony. Every worker is armed with a tiny hypodermic needle in its rear end. When one bee uses its sting in defense of its hive, it releases an alarm pheromone which calls in other bees and incites them to sting. Although each bee carries little more than a millionth of an ounce of venom, it can be a deadly defense when you're faced with up to 30,000 angry insects. And the deadliest defenders of all are the so-called killer bees. Africanized honeybees are #1 in the countdown because they attack 20 times faster and leave 8 times more stings than ordinary bees. They'll chase an intruder for up to a mile and repeatedly sting their victim for an entire day. In the Americas alone, biologists estimate that Africanized bees have killed more than 1,000 people. But bees are also dying to defend their nest. Workers lay down their lives for the colony because their first sting is also their last. A bee dies soon after it inserts its barbed hypodermic into a victim. There was a time when a select group of humans had the same extreme devotion to defense. In ancient Japan, there existed a class of professional warrior. He had no other life than to defend the leader of his clan. He was a samurai, and he was born to fight. The samurai were the human equivalent of the honeybee because they would sacrifice their lives to protect their leader. Their very name means to serve because once a samurai pledged allegiance to his master, he would fight to the death for the protection of his lord and his land. The samurai were extreme human defenders because from childhood, every warrior was prepared for the ultimate self-sacrifice. If their lord commanded them, they would carry out seppuku. For a samurai, ritual suicide was an unquestionable demonstration of his honor, courage, and loyalty. Everything about the ritual was carefully prescribed, from the clothes to be worn down to the formal last sips of sake. The warrior was then presented with a short sword, its blade wrapped in silk to soak up his blood. He then laid down his life for his lord. There's no ritual when a killer bee sacrifices itself for the colony. These tiny warriors are #1 in the countdown because they don't hesitate to use their deadly defense. That's why, when it comes to defenders, the killer bee really is the most extreme.